What are you? The Underdogs. I'm John Chidley Hill,
And I am Sheldon Alexander.
and this is You Killed It, the podcast talking about the challenge, Ride or Dies. Sheldon, I'm going to steal your line and say this is episode 12 covering Ride or Dies. Episode 238 of You Killed It. We're a little sleepy today, if we're being honest. We're trying our best.
Definitely a little sleepy, but I will say you have helped already by taking my line of the episode and making the line of the episode basically the first thing said. Here we are. The line of the episode, the name of this podcast. Here we go. We're pretty
Sheldon
much done.
Alexander.
We can wrap things up right now. A minute in. It's over.
Did you just give Devin, my guy Devin, the line of the episode?
We'll get to this.
I've never felt so close to you, Sheldon.
No. I got some thoughts. I got some thoughts here.
I mean, this is a complicated episode. We do have some listener comments, though, that we should get to. Because if I'm being honest, I don't know when I'm going to get to it.
Well, also too, just give the people the info. Make sure you like and follow wherever you are listening to said podcast. Bless us with the like, bless us with the retweet, bless us with whatever it is. Click the button. Show that you support this. That is the You Killed It podcast, because we appreciate y'all.
So we got a request, and it was directed at me, so it's probably a me thing. But machete, but that's spelled like M-I-C-H capital E-D-D-Y, so Michelle plus Eddie, machete, says, "Hi, I like your podcast, but could you please stop saying that Nani is short? She's 5'8". I'm a tall snob.
Okay.
And I can be the first to admit this. So that's probably on me. I looked this up, and machete is correct. According to all those aggregate websites that creepily come up with people's heights and ages and weight and marital stats, the kind. She's 5'8". I have to say, and I tweeted this at Machete, I am genuinely surprised to hear that. She does not strike me as 5'8". And if she's 5'8", if that's her standard, all these people are way taller than I expected, and I don't think of them as any of them as being that tall.
I would question how accurate we think said website is in terms of tracking quote unquote celebrity heights.
Yeah, they're really hit or miss. I don't know. And I mean, this isn't a Wikipedia thing, but as you know, my cousin has a Wikipedia page. It's a weird humble brag. And they had her birthday wrong for the longest time.
Yeah.
And it became a running gag in our family that we would wish her a happy birthday on her fake Wikipedia birthday.
Well played.
So I don't know. I guess I'll just stop making fun of Nani for being short. But
yeah. I mean, I get it. I totally understand. I think that speaking of fake, my question to you is
that segue.
Well, I was gonna say, how fake were all the hugs between Amber and the rest of the cast when they got back? Am I just going too hard on Amber now at this point? Or could you really tell? Or was I just looking for something to say negative about Amber? Because I'm catching myself in the moment right now, and it sounds like I dislike Amber, but I really don't. I think I'm more annoyed by her. Does that make sense?
Amber reminds me of a colleague or a classmate where you're just you could be cool if you just relaxed. you're at an 8 all the time, and we have first period English class, be a 7. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I also am noticing that I find Chauncey, when he's not with Amber,
is much more likable.
Yeah. That whole bit they were doing where he's oh, seeing you do something physical is so hot. It just seemed like he was saying it awkwardly. And
you mean their kisses?
But I just think, yeah, I mean, I don't know if listen, I'm not going to try to pretend to know what their relationship is like in real life, but it just kind of seems like too put on all the time, right? Like, I don't know.
I will say another listener comment. Longtime listener Sarah says Chauncey has no personality. No way. Every time he talks, I think about how adorable he is. I can't remember the last time I saw a man on the main show, not All Stars, and thought he seemed like he'd be such a normal and lovely guy to date. I will say, I do think Chauncey seems normal.
Mhm.
I just think he's a little bland.
Yeah. I mean, I totally get it. I totally get where you're coming from too. I just think that Amber, the whole dynamic between them, it's almost like they're just showing us what they think what a good relationship looks like on TV,
Yeah.
or what a good relationship should look like on the challenge,
I
you
mean,
know?
put it this way. Uh Casey and Nani are also in a relationship and like an equally serious, although perhaps an older relationship, as
Mhm.
in they've been together longer, and they're not so demonstrative. Like we're not seeing these like conversations where like Nani or Casey finishes a competition and Nani says, "Oh my God, you look so hot!" Like maybe
Yeah.
that's just editing. And I will
True.
say, to Sarah's point, like in fairness to Sarah, maybe we're being unkind to Chauncey. Like, just like as we said, Kenny was just a normal guy. And
Yeah.
so he sort of like seems bland in comparison, where like I'm sure Kenny in regular life is just that like good neighbor, normal person, valued coworker kind of person. And like, you know what? Maybe Sarah's right. Maybe Chauncey is the same way.
Yeah.
And just that because he is so normal, he seems bland to us.
Yeah. No, for sure. Speaking of bland though, because I felt not that Nelson's been bland this season, but I think if you put him on a curve
Yeah.
from prior seasons, this would be more of his blander
This,
performances that we've seen from
this
Nelson,
is
right?
PG Nelly.
Yes. Nelly PG.
Nelly PG.
Um,
That's better.
so the reason I bring this up though is because we get a call from Corey. And
Yeah.
obviously, Corey and Nelson, that's not bland at all. There's nothing bland about that
No.
dynamic and that dynamic on the challenge. Long way for me to go here to make that segue. But Corey and Nelson, Corey calls Nelson or Nelson calls Corey, whatever. They're having a video chat. And first off, as a longtime viewer of the show, it just made me smile seeing these two laugh together and joke around together. However you feel about the Team Young Buck, right? It is more fun and seeing them hyped up and all the memories of Nelson throwing himself in for Corey and all that fun stuff. But in terms of this season, I thought it was super interesting Nelson telling Corey about what was going on in the house and how Corey was just like, yo, man, how's everything going? You got to make sure you get bananas and Fessy out. Right? Because like it's so obvious. And it's funny to me that we've been discussing this for weeks about this friendship and are they really friends outside the house? And meanwhile, Nelson's real friend outside the house is like, yo, man, have you been trying to get Fessy out yet?
Yeah, you got to get that guy up out of here. He even called Fessy their enemy. I'll tell you what struck me from this phone call. Just off the hop immediately. Number one, I miss Corey.
Okay.
Number two, I thought, oh, Nelson's getting eliminated this episode. as soon as there's the call home, I'm like, oh, I understand. Nelson's getting the fuck up out of here. Like he is
Yeah.
done for.
And also too, because right after they showed a Jordan conversation, it was like, well, Jordan's not going home.
Yeah.
Right. Like you just got that feeling that Jordan wasn't going home for whatever reason.
At
So
first, at first, when like Jordan was getting a call home, I was like, oh, maybe Nelson's not going to go home because they're on opposite teams. Like, how's this going to happen? And then, like, when he was calling Ukraine to talk about the war, I'm like, oh, yeah, no, Nelson's going home. This is showcasing that Jordan is like a complex person. And like, they like, to MTV's credit, to Bun and Murray's credit, they do try to put a highlight, a showcase on these pressing issues.
yeah.
And like, shout out to Jordan in real life doing things that matter. Although I will say, I am going to call him out on this. I'm not sure if you're aware of this. It's really frowned upon to refer to Ukraine as the Ukraine.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
called it the Ukraine. I'm like, ooh, Jordan, you've been there. You've seen it. You should know that they really, Ukrainians hate it when you call it the Ukraine. Like,
Yeah.
I can, a peek behind the curtain about my job. I can tell you with authority that the Ukrainian Canadian Association, I think it's
Mhm.
called, they search Canadian websites and newspapers every day. And if they see that you use the phrase the Ukraine in a story, they will contact you and like explain to you why it is not the appropriate way of
Okay.
calling them that. Like they are on it. And for our non-Canadian listeners, there is a huge Ukrainian Canadian population, particularly in Winnipeg and the province of Manitoba. So
Oh,
like
I didn't
there's
know
a
that.
oh yeah, there's a huge Ukrainian, especially in like the prairies. There's a lot of people of Ukrainian descent.
Hmm.
Um, but that is like the Ukrainian Canadian Association. I think that's the association's name. But
Interesting.
they are on it. So I can tell you if they're watching, Jordan Wisely might be getting an email or something.
Yeah.
And like it's always polite but firm, but they're like, it's really not cool for you to use that phrase. So
Mhm.
something for our listeners to learn about.
Yeah, super interesting stuff. And, we also learned this about Jordan. I had no idea that this was a
No,
thing that he was doing. And I thought it was really interesting that they were able to highlight something so important and tell you how you can help and get involved, which, as you mentioned, is something that this show is really good at doing, as we've seen them do throughout a lot of different instances, right? And then m- easily transition into being able to talk about whatever other foolishness is going on the show, but carving out time for the real issues, it's interesting. I give them a lot of credit. Like that's not something you really see on like Survivor or Big
no.
Brother or whatever, right?
I like it because it's sort of a shout out to the roots of the show because the show, the real world, especially in its original formulations, they dealt with some real life things.
Definitely. Definitely a
And
great point.
so I'm glad that they like got in touch with that. And like there's even later seasons. I can't remember which season what it was called. But I know we've talked about it. It was the first time where there was a predominantly black or biracial cast
Mhm.
and they spoke about Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
And like that was huge. Like that was great. So I'm glad that they got they sort of like channeled back into the social justice
Mhm.
side of things. If not for just a 2 minute like little sidebar. But then we had the tough transition of Fessy being like, "So it's guys elimination, Mariah. You gonna help me out here?" And she was like, "Fuck no! Like, what's wrong with you?"
Well, it's so funny how this episode ends up playing out, right? Because he's so salty. And I mean, even as we look forward to next week's episode, we see him still being salty. But like this moment at the beginning of the episode was so hilarious to me because he's like, "Hey, are you going to help me out?" And she says, "Well, it's not like you helped me when it was girls' elimination." And his response, completely deadpan, not even half joking with the smirk. He says, "Well, you didn't come and ask me." It's like, what? Like, is that honestly like you think like that is an actual answer? But I guess he does. I don't know. I Fessy is a very interesting dude to me. I'm so confused by him, but I just think that he is so caught up in Fessy that he has no idea how he comes off to like
No,
real people.
no, I think he's really out of. I think you nailed it on the head. He's really out of touch with how people view him, how in some ways transparent he is.
Mhm.
Right? Like he often strikes me as someone who is scared,
Ooh,
like
interesting.
scared in his position in the house, right?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
as an example, he says all episode, at least before the daily, like, yeah, we're rolling, we're winning, we're confident, we feel good. Look at that other team, you
Yeah.
know,
Mhm.
we're gonna win. Well, if that's the case, why are you asking Mariah to protect you? Right?
True story. But speaking of that other team, your man's Devin all of a sudden thinks that he's like Bill Belichick or Phil
That's right.
Jackson. Like
That's right.
what was going on here, man?
Win one for the skipper. Here we go, bud. I really see this scene was confusing to me because by moments I was like, did production put him up to this? And
Mm,
like, there's also part of me that was like, I could not imagine Jordan being into this whole thing. Like, Jordan seems just a like, let's get it done kind of guy. Like, he doesn't seem like
yeah.
a big speech guy. But on the other hand, Jordan seemed into it. And I was just like, I don't know. It seemed like Devin had buy-in. I felt like he said too much.
Yeah, and at a certain point it became funny, right? Like they
Yeah.
were kind of playing it up a little, which I thought was smart to do because the whole thing's kind of silly, but you need to like make sure that we're all in on the joke, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Um, but this all leads to this daily challenge, which at first I thought was going to be a lot harder than it
Yeah.
appeared to be. But also, even without that, I just think it became like that's one of those things where it looked really hard, but it was probably way harder in reality. And then the swim at the end of the day is just whoa. Like that challenge looked super dope.
Yeah. It looked really good. I'll tell you, before it happened, I have this in my notes. I'm gonna put it out there. I wonder if Tori and Anissa will throw it to help out Devin.
Oh.
That was the first thing that crossed my mind because I was like,
Hmm.
huh, who would they be protecting on their team? Not really anyone. Like, I don't think they dislike Bananas
Mhm.
or Nelson and like they have, I think, mixed feelings about Fessel.
Mhm.
So I was like, huh,
Well,
I wonder if
I
that's in
mean
the offing. Well, we're gonna of course circle to that. And like I also know that this season, among our valued You Killed It listeners,
Mhm.
I'm getting a reputation for being a bit of a conspiracy theorist. A little
Okay.
suspicious of how things are going with production.
Okay.
But I have to bring to your attention another John who has bought into conspiracy theories. Johnny Bananas tweeted last night a
Oh.
video
Oh.
of the shot of Horacio and Jordan going into the 100-point square,
Yep.
and he says there's a 0% chance Jordan hit the target. This just confirms what we saw from the shore. Literally the only pair we didn't get a bird's eye view shot from the chopper splashing down. I can't imagine why.
Wow. So hold on here. Here's my question to you. Is there a chance that Bananas is just trying to throw us all off the scent?
I mean, that's
Because
possible.
what I'm saying is, if you're Bananas, right? You see the chatter. You know
Yep.
that everyone thinks that you're in on this whole thing and you get a lot of help from production. And so now to counter that, you're going to put this out there because I'm not saying that there's not truth to this, but to me, watching this episode, watching this daily challenge and how it went, I too was questioning not whether like whoever hit the targets or whatever, because like couldn't really tell. But I was questioning the fact that it was within 2 seconds of each other.
Yeah.
And because we'd have no idea, right? Because you can edit it however you want to make it look as fast or as slow as you want. My thing was just kind of more so, what are the chances?
Yeah.
Right? Like, what are the chances that you'd have two teams do something so elaborate, right? That have all these people swimming, who are at varying degrees of swimming ability, then add in the fact that one person was going back and pushing people to swim faster, that this would all just come down and be so close. What are the chances of that? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm also skeptical that it was really within 2 seconds.
But I also do want to say this part, though.
Okay.
Does it matter?
No.
Because I think of it from a production standpoint. I was like, oh, like so excited as they go to break, right? So like I'm looking at it from a production standpoint, like, yeah, you did your job as a producer and made it more interesting. Who cares if it's a lie or not? And then two, as a viewer, it worked on me. As a viewer, I was watching and I was like, oh, wow, really? Okay, well, who won? You know, because if you like, what's the point in saying, well, this team won by 25 seconds?
Yeah.
What does that do? Who's going to call you out and say that you're wrong? No one else has a stopwatch to be timing it.
No, and we don't have, like, we have no frame of reference.
Mhm.
I will say that it makes sense that 6 people would finish something faster than 8 people. And that the Fessel's team made a conscious decision to not help everyone get back quickly.
See, I thought they were going to make a way bigger deal about that.
Yeah.
The fact that he asked Bananas and Bananas was like, no. I thought they'd make a way bigger deal about that, and they didn't. I thought they were going to use that as a reason to try and throw in Bananas.
Oh, intriguing.
That's what I thought was going to happen. I thought when they highlighted the fact that Fessie's swimming back with Bananas and he's like, hey, should we go help them? And Bananas says no, but then Fessie does. I thought later on their team, they were going to use that and be like, hey, well, Bananas, you didn't want to help everybody. And literally the other team helping each other is the reason why they won.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought they were going to use that as an excuse to throw Bananas in, but that was not the case, which, I mean, we'll get to it, but.
Well, I mean, we can get to it right now. The Underdogs win.
True.
The renamed team, Moriah's team, is now known as the Underdogs.
Mm-hmm.
In part because of Devin's speech, where he's called them all dogs.
Yep.
And so Operation Save Chauncey is a go. And my man's Devin,
come on, man,
holds up a sheet of paper that explains Operation Save Chauncey, which I liked because, like, he's working with some dumb people, and I think a visual aid is helpful for them. And like held it up for the camera. And basically, Operation Save Chauncey, it's straightforward. The idea is to save Chauncey. And that is based off of really putting Fessel and Nelson in against each other.
Yeah.
And banking on the fact that if Johnny Bananas is going to save anyone, it's going to be Chauncey if it comes to dagger pull. And Chauncey would likely save Bananas if the dagger was in the other hand.
Yeah, I thought they did a really good job of explaining just how this was all going to go down. Because like to me it seemed obvious, right? But of course, like we're watching the show differently. We like kind of have an idea of the inner workings of how this stuff normally plays out. So of course you're going to shoot your shot. Like I didn't doubt that Fessie was going to go in, and I didn't doubt that he was going to go in against Nelson. Like that's just kind of the most obvious thing to do. In fact, I'm more shocked when the opposite happens, which, you know, Fessie and what they decided to do weeks ago, which, yeah, is a hot button issue at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just saying they set it up perfectly. And in that conversation that Fessie and Nelson were having, in which I found so funny because they're talking about the possibility of them having to go in against each other. And Fessie says, I don't want to be the one to send him home. It's like he didn't even have the possibility in his mind that like Nelson could beat him in anything, which is so funny because the elimination could be anything. But Fessie being Fessie, it like doesn't even enter his mind that there's a chance that he could lose to Nelson.
I think it's so funny that you pointed that out because in the interrogation, Fessel says, like, yeah, I'm going to anyone you put me in against, I'm going to rip their head off. And in my head, I was like, what if it's a puzzle? Like, how do
Right.
you rip someone's head off in a puzzle? And
Right.
like, I think Bananas. I mean, Bananas definitely could have beat Fessel in a puzzle. Chauncey, probably. Nelson,
Yeah.
maybe. Like,
Who knows, right? It's a crapshoot.
and also, although Fessel, I think, is stronger than uh, Nelson, Nelly's definitely the fastest person in the house.
Mm-hmm.
So what if it's a speed thing? Like, what if it's a footwork? Like, there's so many. What if it's a balance thing? Like, there's so many possibilities. But Fessel has clearly just worked on the assumption that he's always the biggest and strongest, and being the biggest and strongest wins at everything.
Yeah.
But I will have to point out, Sheldon,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't necessarily get you drafted to the NFL.
No, it's a different level. There's levels to this ish, in the wise words of Ricky Rose. But I think that the thing I found interesting was that it was so obvious and smart gameplay move by Bananas and Chauncey, realizing that, it's better to have each other's backs as
Yeah.
opposed to trying to make some like backroom deal with Fessy and Nelson being like, hey, well, like it'd be a really good idea if we, and try to play both sides. It was just smart to have it all on the table in terms of this is how it was going to go, which is why to me the whole Devin thing was so unnecessary, right? Like it was just Devin doing too much yet again, because it's like, this is not that complicated. You obviously throw in Fessy, right? And that's just what it is. You throw in Fessy and you let the daggers play out how they will. But at the end of the day, you want to save Chauncey. It's for the betterment of everyone on his team to have Chauncey be the one that's safe. And if Nelson goes home, well, cool. Nelson's a strong competitor. If Bananas goes home, well, as Devin said, he has 7 rings. So it was just so obvious, but his whole thing, and why does he need to have Amber on his side? Like, who cares about Amber?
I have to say, I don't want to shock you. I'm going to defend Devin here.
What?
I know. I think that the problem is some of the people in this house overthink things, and just a little. And 2 of those people are Amber and Moriah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you have to give these people structure to help them through, and like to give them what they need to get where they need to go to the correct answer. And also, I mean, we're about to get to it, but there's some other wild cards in the house.
Yeah. So, okay. There's a lot going on here, and I think that Jordan had a really good episode, and I'm probably like alluding to someone that I think could be in contention for winning the episode. But just the things that Jordan was pointing out, I found very interesting. Like him pointing out that in their limited amount of time that they had power, Devin was already taking charge and trying to be like, scheming like way too much and way too hard. I thought that was interesting and a great observation by Jordan. 2, I also want to say that I think that if you look at Jordan's perspective, the whole Jordan and Tori thing, to me, it seems like such an interesting thing where Jordan and Tori have been in this like long sorted relationship on this show. We all know that this has happened already. We've seen it. So now when they're talking about it and they're kind of tiptoeing around the fact that, this thing happened with Fessy and we don't really know how Jordan, well, we know that Jordan isn't a fan of Fessy. We know that Tori, I mean, she tried to tell us early on in the season, Tori tried to tell us that she's not a fan of Fessy and it was such a huge mistake. But then now all of a sudden we're in this position where Tori is now defending Fessy, but she's not even really being honest about it or not being like upfront about it or not really being like she doesn't just put it out there. Like she's kind of tiptoeing around this. And I
She
found
never
that
says
part
his name.
weird. But I found that part weird. Like I didn't get it. Like all we know about their relationship from on the season, right, is that it started with Tori telling us about how Fessy was a walking, breathing mistake or whatever the quote was. Then we saw one conversation between the two of them. And then now Tori's trying to make it seem like Jordan is only safe because she talked to Fessy and convince Fessy to save Jordan, which that's not how I saw it play out, but that's how she's trying to make it in a very, very awkward thing. I don't understand it at all.
So there's two things. Like, I think the timeline's important here. Fessy approaches Jordan and gets Jordan to basically agree to not, to call a truce and to not put him in, which I guess is fine. The first thing that I thought though was like, okay, Jordan will vote for Nelson. Nelson will go in. You still have a 2 out of 3 chance that either Chauncey or Bananas pulls the dagger and Fessy's going in.
Yeah.
So like, okay, it like marginally reduces Fessel's odds of going in, but like you got to do something. Okay. And then I gather an hour later, Tori approaches Jordan and basically says, if you put in Fessel, it'll look bad on me and you because it'll look like you're doing it out of revenge for me and Fessel having hooked up 8 months ago or however long ago it was.
Yeah.
And like Jordan takes great offense to this and reads it as like it'll end their relationship, which is already ended. Like he's already hooking up with Nerys.
Yeah. And I mean, he says to her something I thought that was very important. He says to her, why would something that happens in a game interfere with our heart and how we actually feel about each other in their relationship?
Yeah.
Which I believe is true, first off, even with all the stuff that happened with Nerys. My issue here that I still don't understand is, why is Tori all of a sudden defending Fessy? Like, why does she want to save? Like her saving Fessy is obviously just for selfish reasons because Fessy's on her team, right? Like that's the only thing it comes down to.
Yeah.
So the part I don't understand, because Jordan explained this. There's a conversation with Jordan and Devin, where Jordan, again, great observations throughout this whole episode. He's talking about how they should put in Fessy. And he says, if you go into enough eliminations, you will lose. And Fessy just hasn't gone into enough eliminations. Now, I will add on to that. The majority of times that we've seen Fessy go into an elimination, it's been on his terms. Meaning, it's been seasons where you get to choose when you're going in. You can pick your spots to get in terms of who you're going against, what the elimination is, etc. And so I agree with Jordan here. You take your shots when you can get them. The fact that Fessy had his chance to do that a couple weeks ago and didn't is on Fessy. Like we already acknowledged last week that Fessy and Nelson screwed that up, right? When they didn't put in Jordan and Devin against each other, and instead they wasted, who was it that went in? It was Kenny and who? Kenny and Chauncey? No. Who did Kenny go
Horacio.
against? Horacio, sorry. Right? But like, we've already established that made no sense, and that was just bad gameplay. And, you know, did Tori have something to do with that? Yeah. But I also think there were other people on their team that were also invested in saving Devin and Jordan, namely Bananas.
Yeah.
Right. But like just other people who had that in mind as well. And also Anissa, right? Like there are other people involved in that decision. So I say all that to say, what is Tori doing? I'm just super confused here. doing too much award. And maybe this is just being partners with Devin that's rubbing off on her a little too much, where you're trying to be like some mastermind here of the challenge. And you're literally going to Jordan to tell him, hey, don't put in arguably the biggest, baddest competitor there is into the elimination. And also the guy that I hooked up with on national TV after I broke up with you. Forget about all of that and don't put him in just cuz. Like, there's no actual reason as to why. Like, because he'll look bad. How does he look bad for throwing in Fessy? That makes no sense. That's the right gameplay.
Yeah. So what I was struck by all of this was how people weren't on the same page. Like, Devin and Tori are super tight. They are each other's ride or dies. And yet you've got Devin telling Jordan Fessy in. Like, let's get this. And like Jordan agreeing. Like Jordan said that Devin was doing too much, but they were in agreement of like what the destination was. Right?
Yeah.
And then you've got Fessy asking Jordan to not put him in.
Yeah.
Which Jordan basically agrees to. He says no guarantees, but like he basically agrees to. And then an hour later, Tori asks Jordan to not put Fessy in. And like on
one thing we should clarify though.
Yeah.
One thing we should clarify. Jordan did say to Fessy, no promises, but he did say that he was not going to say Fessy's name, which I think is an important distinction, because if there's one important factor here, it is that he said he didn't guarantee him that he wasn't going in, but he guaranteed him that he wasn't going to say his name, which he then does because of Tori. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, but I just want to make the point that like, why are Devin and Tori not on the same page about whether or not Fessy should go in?
Well, this is what I'm saying. I don't understand what Tori's actual MO is and what she was actually trying to do. Because the other thing is, was Jordan the swing vote?
I don't think he was. It was pretty handily like settled. And also the other thing is, why is Tori an hour after Fessy has basically accomplished what she wants coming back around to seal the deal?
Doing too much.
Yeah.
Like, is she genuinely thinking that people at home are going to think that Devin threw in Fessy just because him and Tori slept together? Like, I didn't see that as a reason to throw in Fessy, right? Like, I thought the reason to throw in Fessy was because he's the best competitor, like the strongest competitor, and you don't want to go against him in an elimination. So
no,
when you can avoid that scenario, you try to make that be a thing. So I thought that was weird, especially after Jordan told us, and we don't know the timelines, as you mentioned, but in terms of how we've seen it in the episode, Jordan told us, hey, Fessy just hasn't been in enough eliminations. You got to give that opportunity a chance to play out. But yeah, I don't get it. What did you make of the actual like process of all the votes? Because so Jordan, they ask first, who is he voting for? I don't remember this being a thing, but did they do the votes exactly like this the week before? Where like every person got a chance to vote? They did, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So Jordan gets to go first, and he gives his whole speech about how his honor and he doesn't go back on his word. And he then
which I found so unnecessary.
Well, the unnecessary part to me, especially after considering the beginning of the episode, that you would, and the timelines of it again, who knows when he did this, but the way that the show is edited together, you can't have Jordan at the start of the episode talking about all the work that he's doing in Ukraine at the beginning of the episode, and then at the end of the episode, have him make the analogy of he doesn't negotiate with terrorists.
Yeah.
To me, that's just a bad, like I know what he's saying. I get that it's like a saying. I understand.
It's really inappropriate, though.
It's inappropriate. Exactly. That's exactly my point. It's just inappropriate. And I'm not being the woke culture, like, like, oh no, like, I'm not offended. I'm not saying anyone is offended by it. I'm just saying it looks stupid, right? That
Yeah.
you would have
It's a
like,
really poor contrast.
yes, right. And I'm not saying that, again, I'm clarifying this because I'm not saying that I'm offended. I'm not doing the whole too woke thing. That's not what I'm doing. I just genuinely think that it looks stupid for you to be referencing, Ukraine early on and referencing an actual real life war. And then later on in the episode, making the analogy of you negotiating with terrorists in a game of the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
That's just me.
And no, it's not just you, because I'll tell you, I was taught, like, in journalism school, that it's when you're writing a sports story, like, there's a term that's thrown around a lot in, like, Canadian hockey circles, where they talk about whenever the Leafs play the Senators, they call it the Battle of Ontario.
Yeah.
Whenever the Flames play the Oilers, they call it the Battle of Alberta. That's, in some circles, frowned upon, because we have colleagues who are covering honest to God battles.
Correct.
So, like, you don't call a hockey game a battle, because, like, not so much in my current office, but in my old office, we moved a year ago. Our war correspondent, who'd been in Afghanistan, was sat like 20 feet from us and had a flak jacket hanging from when he'd covered. He was in Afghanistan, and the APV ahead of him exploded.
Yeah.
Like, you don't throw around terms like terrorism when you have just been talking about actual war.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't think it's about being woke or politically correct. It's about contrast and perspective.
Yeah. Totally agree with that. And like so if we awkwardly segue to the actual like game portion of it and what he's saying in terms of, remove the terrible analogy. And if we just leave it to him talking about Tori coming to him, trying to get him to not say Fessie's name.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that is the actual reason for him picking Fessie in, or is it just a convenient excuse?
I think two things happened. I think that he doesn't want to admit it, but Jordan is really hurting. And when Tori stepped up to try to defend Fessel, it hurt him more, because it made it seem like there was more to her past with Fessel than maybe there was. So I think he was really hurt, which is why I think he used such really strong, overreactive language. And I also think that he knows that throwing in Fessel is the right choice.
Yeah.
And that he should not have made that commitment to Fessel.
And also, he might be doing a solid for Moriah, because this is the other interesting turn of what ends up happening here. Because as the picks go around, or the votes, pardon me, it goes to Moriah, and she has a chance to tie up the votes, because if she says Fessie's name, he's automatically going in, right? Mm-hmm. If she says Nelson's name, it becomes a tie. I actually agree with her in what she says, because she decides to burn her vote, obviously, right? Mm-hmm. And she votes for Chauncey. But if we break it down, I think she's actually right. She says she doesn't know what would happen if it's a tie, which if you watch the challenge for years and years and years, the rules differ every single year in terms of what happens if there's a tie and you cannot come to a decision. We've seen times where TJ has said, all right, you guys need to decide right now. If you don't decide, one of you guys are going in. We've seen TJ say, if you guys can't decide, then I'm going to decide and I'm going to pick who's going in. We've seen all kinds of things. So I understand her not wanting to tie it up, because she doesn't know what would happen to her team, which is already at a deficit. You can't risk it. So I get that. But then on top of this, she says, well, she's not going to say Fessie's name. And then Fessie told her to not say Nelson's name.
Yeah.
So if you're Moriah and if you're just voting in general, you are going to end up burning your vote anyways.
Yeah.
Right? So Fessie getting mad at her and saying like, oh, you're basically putting me in by burning your vote. Well, you already knew that she wasn't going to vote for you, and you told her to not vote for Nelson. So by default, you're telling her to vote for either Chauncey or Bananas, which is a burn vote.
Yeah.
Right. So I didn't understand Fessy's whole, like, I didn't understand Fessy at all. I'll just say that and leave it there.
Well, again, I think it speaks to the fact that Fessy doesn't really understand the game.
Yeah.
Like he for whatever reason can't quite get the subtleties of it. Like he is forever thinking that basically might makes right and being the strongest and best is the way to go. And he is forever like, talks a big game about how like whatever, I'll just go and smash whoever and like my team's never going to lose.
Yeah.
But then, for a guy who's super confident that like he can just destroy whoever, he's doing a lot to keep himself out and to keep his friends out.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Like if we contrast that to someone like Jordan, who at least when it comes to competition is super confident, Jordan will just be like, yeah, okay, like let's get down to work and like does it. And like as someone who else is like that is like CT. CT's at a point in his career where he doesn't talk shit. He's just like, okay, like I'm going in.
But this is also to me a huge sign of Fessy not fully understanding the game. Because if you played it out, you had to know that they're going to want to put directly in him or Nelson. Like you have to know that, especially when the other people voting, like Nani's obviously going to pick one of you guys, right? Nelson or Fessy. Amber is obviously going to pick, like the way that it plays out, it's so obvious. So for you to tell your partner that you can't pick him and you can't pick Nelson, like what else did you think was going to, I don't know. Anyways, why am I trying to break down and get into the mind of Fessy? It just doesn't make sense. So Fessy ends up going directly in. Then we get the daggers and Bananas picks first again, but this time he picks the wrong dagger. Okay. I want to ask Conspiracy John what he thinks about this, because obviously we've talked about Bananas having the hot hand and picking the safe dagger all the time. But in this instance, he doesn't pick it. But also he's in a pretty good spot because the person who picked it second just happens to be on his side.
Yeah, I as soon as that happened, like when they announced, all right, Johnny, you're up first, I was like, okay, like I see how this is gonna play out.
Yeah.
But then he did not pull the safe dagger. I mean, maybe production felt like 2 out of 3 odds is good enough for them. Worth noting that, of course, they had him pick first, Chauncey pick second. So like the odds were still like stacked in their favor. Better put, stacked against Nelson.
Yep.
I don't know.
Very interesting. Very interesting. This elimination, I thought that they made this elimination in a setup to have Nelson go against Fessy. Because I feel like other than Bananas, other than maybe Horatio, I feel like everyone else would struggle at this. No?
Yeah.
Like this was an extremely difficult challenge if you are not like super strong.
Yeah.
And that's where I kind of look at it and I'm thinking, okay, well, is this just production maneuvering to keep like not because you didn't know who was going to win. Like you didn't know if it was going to be Nelson or Fessy, but you knew that one of them was going to be in it. And I felt like this was geared to keep one of them safe. I would love to know this. And I don't know if, this has ever been talked about publicly, but I would love to know when they decide what the elimination is going to be. Like, do they decide that after you kind of have an idea of who might be in the elimination? Do you decide it like, is it already all mapped out beforehand in terms of, well, for episode this, we're going to have this is the daily competition and then this is the elimination? You know,
Yeah.
like how far out in advance do they decide? Because again, I'm looking at watching this whole thing. I'm like, I felt bad for Nelson because he might win this against anyone else but Fessy. But
Yep.
also, like, how many other people could have completed that? Because Nelson gassed out on this. And
Yeah.
this was really, really hard.
It was super hard. And I don't want to say there was no strategy to it because there was a little bit. But it really did just come down to endurance and strength.
Mm-hmm.
And playing to Fessy's, pardon the pun, strengths. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. And I mean, Fessy did his thing. He wins. He's kind of playing it calm and cool as if it was no big deal. I did like, I know I said earlier on that my line of the episode was the first thing he said on this episode, but I did appreciate Bananas saying that Fessy is good of getting out of tangled situations, tangled webs, but normally it's a web of women. So that might help him in this. I did appreciate that Bananas one-liner, as he's known for, right? But this was a pretty easy dub for Fessy, no?
Pretty easy. It was neck and neck in first, but you already said it. Nelson gassed out. It seemed like the house was divided as well. Like people were shouting out to help Fessy, people were shouting out to help Nelson. I feel bad for Nelson. He sort of got caught up in this.
So bad for Nelson, yeah.
And I also thought like Nelson had an opportunity to throw Fessel in earlier in the season, and he didn't take it.
Mm-hmm.
And just like, I mean, we were critical of Nelson at the time, but then they were on the same team. So like, I don't know how it's all going to play out, but like, it's a sliding doors moment. Like, what would have happened if Nelson had not done that and had thrown Fessel in? And maybe Fessel would have come out.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know.
Like, should Nelson have partnered? Because you think about who Nelson was aligned with in terms of Jay and Fessy, not necessarily the best people to be aligned with, because they both, the way that their gameplay, like Jay's gameplay was just messy, right? Jay and Michelle's gameplay was just super messy. So to be aligned with them was not a good look, especially when their next alliance was with Johnny, who was super messy as well in the house, right? Yeah. So that was just bad alliance building by Nelson. But then add in the whole Fessy angle, and it's like, you have to know that if you're aligning yourself with Fessy and the other team has a chance to shoot their shot, they're going to put you in against them.
Yeah.
Right. And so maybe that should have been Nelson's tell that, you know, at the time, you should probably take your shot at Fessy, because I still think that he would have taken the shot at you if it came down to it. And in fact, even if that's not the case, he's already done it.
I also, you know, in terms of like something that I think we really need to point out is that when Fessel's team won, they only strengthened Moriah's team, right? Like they got rid of Kenny.
Yeah.
I mean, losing Nerisse, I think, was a blow. Like Nerisse was smart.
She's really good.
She was really good. But when the underdogs finally won, they pitted Fessel's, arguably his two best players, against each other.
Yeah.
And got rid of one.
Yep.
And now it's 7 people versus 6. And, you know, losing Nelson is a blow. And I'm curious to see what happens next. Like this was a really sort of like intricate episode of the challenge.
Yeah.
Where like you really have to know all the personalities at play. You really have to know who's, you know, everyone's history and stuff. But it was really interesting.
Totally agree. And I want to emphasize the point you made earlier. Like I did feel bad for Nelson. I really did. And he did have a really good season. I think Nerisse helped him a lot. Obviously, he ended his streak. He ended his long losing streak of daily challenges. Nelson seemed to be pretty calm and cool. He only had like one time where he kind of was on the edge of breaking down when he was talking to Devin and getting frustrated in a couple episodes back. But overall, it was a really good season for Nelson. It was funny because he gave the emotional speech that like you see on like American Ninja Warrior or something, you know, or like some fake like, you know, end of the Rocky movie type speech. Like I thought he was going to yell at one point, anything is possible, right? Like, but Nelson has kind of just turned into that figure. And I think it seemed really genuine when he talked about everything. Like I'll just say right now, Nelson killed it for me in this episode, even though he's going home. I think it's more so like a seasonal thing that I'm giving it to Nelson here, but what he was saying when he was talking about how the challenge, like everything the challenge has given him, right? And how even with a lot of mistakes that Nelson's made on this show and in public and in behind the scenes, and Nelson's been through a lot, but watching him this season, it seemed like he actually grew up, if that made sense.
Yeah.
He wasn't messy with his relationship with Olivia. That was pretty, you know, I know he didn't vote for her once, but that's gameplay. There was no like
it was her idea. Like
no. The
idea.
other time, remember the other time where he, yeah. But there was no like beef or no drama or him trying to be messy fessy, you know, and trying to juggle multiple girls or anything like that. Like he seemed pretty just straightforward, Nelly T. And I think he had a really good season, which bodes well for him going forward. I think his biggest mistake was just choosing the wrong alliance. He probably should have tried to align with Devin and then, you know, play it out from there.
Yeah, he should have, I think, been more strategic in his initial alliances. I mean, it's sort of implied from the conversation he had with Corey that he should have, like, their game plan was, oh, Fessy's on the season, get him out.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you who killed it for me this week, and it's a little off the board.
Okay.
I think Johnny Bananas killed it.
Oh, okay.
Because Johnny Bananas, I don't think he would have won that elimination against either Fessy or Nelson.
Agreed.
I'm not sure he would have won it against Chauncey.
Agreed.
I think we're seeing Johnny Bananas playing a slightly different version of this game than he used to. Mm-hmm. He is being much less hands-on. He's taking a bigger backseat. He's almost following CT's game plan of like, I just got to get to the final.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, I'm just going to lay as low as I can. And,
exactly.
You know, like, I think it would, I mean, and this is sort of damning with faint praise, but I think it's critical for Johnny to stay out of eliminations.
I agree with that.
And he had a very subtle touch. He didn't, unlike Devin, and certainly unlike Jordan, Fessel, or Tori, he was just like, he had basically one conversation with Chauncey. And that set things in motion enough that he had the best possible odds to not go into elimination. No one was even really talking about him. He didn't even get a burn vote thrown on him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's just nice, clean gameplay. And I respect it.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you, my dude. Right there with you.
Where can the good people find you on social media?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Shell Alexander, on Instagram at Sheldon Alexander. Of course, another reminder, like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Bless with the like, bless with the retweet, bless with the share. Tell your friends, anyone who enjoys the challenge. We'd love to bring you into the community and discuss our favorite reality show.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at J Chidley Hill. And have a happy new year, Sheldon. And to all our listeners, have a happy new year.
You as well.
And until the new year, this was You Killed It.
You killed it.